everybody. Welcome to Talking Heartland. This is the show where we are recapping back episodes of Heartland TV show, and we are now in season 6, episodes 9, 10, or we are in season 6, episodes 7, 8, and 9, and it's a lot of fun. There's going to be some fun ones to talk about. I'm film critic Rachel Wagner. Michelle's here.
Hey everyone.
Yes, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Getting
Good
by.
to, good to hear. Yeah, this is a pretty good little streak of episodes, I think, with particularly some good Jack moments and some good Amy Ty moments. Would you
Yeah,
agree? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. So it's gonna be fun. Let us know if you're listening what you think. Put in the comments section or on Twitter. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And the first episode is called "Life is a Highway." This is Chase Powers returns to Heartland with an aspiring Liberty horse rider named Haley, who wants Amy to be her coach. And Amy is shocked to learn what Haley's connection is to Chase. So, what they're being kind of coy about is we find out that Chase has gotten married. What do you think about that?
I think I was a bit shocked as Amy.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this episode, to be honest.
Uh-huh.
Mm, You know,
What do you like about it overall?
I was just really confused as to why they brought Chase back. I'm not sure. Obviously, we are, watching, way ahead of time. I don't know when season 6 aired or season 5 aired if Chase was like a fan favorite and they were bringing back Torrance Combs as like, just bringing back a fave. But the way they exited the show as kind of like a jerk, I was like, well, surely people didn't like him. And then he
Yeah.
sort of comes back, sort of changed. And then by the episode's end, I felt like that wasn't the storyline at all. Like he was pretty much the same by the end. Like it made no growth whatsoever. And so I was kind of confused as to why he was brought back. And also I wasn't the biggest fan of the Lou stuff as well. But yeah, I was just confused as to why he was
Yeah.
back as this sort of one episode.
Yeah,
When it,
I don't know if they just kind of want to close off his character. I don't know if we see him again. Who knows?
yeah,
But yeah, it was a little bit weird, but I think they probably wanted to have Amy ends up slapping Chase and Ty sees it and so that like I think they're kind of being like, yeah, look how much she's grown or something. I don't know. Maybe that's why, but it was kind of a weird flex.
yeah. And I know that he was on a CW show for quite a few years.
Mm,
And maybe that this was just sort of leading into that and they've sort of got him back before he, went to go do that. That's a possibility. But yeah, the only thing I really liked about the episode was Melanie Scarfano, who plays Winona and Winona Earp. So it was sort of nice to sort of
oh,
see her sort of pop up. Um,
yeah, I saw you tweet about that.
yeah, yeah. Winona Earp, I think that shoots in Alberta as well.
Mm.
So I think there's probably some crossover with locations and stuff. So that was sort of nice. That sort of lifted the episode for me a little bit.
Is Wyona Earp, is that set in modern or in the past?
Oh, it's modern, but it's very sort of like tonally in the past.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah, so Lou is upset at them putting uh Katie on the horse for of Tim putting Katie on the horse for like a second. He was holding her. I mean, I thought she's
Yeah,
kind of getting crazy.
yeah. I wasn't the biggest fan of the whole thing in this episode.
Mhm.
It just sort of feels like she never really gets a chance to sort of settle into something. She sort of is on a track for a little bit, like, this new job. How many episodes has it been? And then, she's sort of quitting, starting her own business. And it's like,
Mhm.
they never really let her settle into like a job or a storyline without sort of,
That's true.
switching it up.
Yeah, and she wants Georgie to babysit, but she's she's not 12.
Mhm.
She's only 11, which I still think would probably be fine. I mean, I don't know. There's not that much difference. I mean, I think it would be okay because there's people, as long as she had people somewhat close that she could call
Uh-huh.
if there was a problem, I think it would be fine. Are you there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I thought I lost you for a second. Yeah, I think she would be fine. I mean, I know my sister and I, we were babysitting way earlier than that we should. We got inspired by the Babysitters Club, and we were we were babysitting uh definitely younger than 12, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh but it is probably the kind of thing that Lou would stress out about.
Yeah. And I suppose George is sort of so new to the family as well. Um,
Mhm.
so maybe she's a little, cautious in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just sort of felt, you're 11,
Mhm.
like a couple of months short.
Yeah, and so Chase is turns out is married
Hmm.
and to Haley, and is she a Liberty Rider or is she wants to become a Liberty Rider?
I think that the thing was she wanted to become a Liberty rider, or just sort of learn some of the things, the skills that Amy has. But
Mhm.
again, this was another confusing thing because nothing happened. Like she barely got on the horse. It's like what
Mhm.
it felt like it was more Chase wanted her to do it than she actually wanted to.
Yeah, because it seemed like it, I mean, it seems like kind of a high risk activity to be kind of like,
Yeah.
like just sort of not
Yeah,
really into, but doing.
it took Amy like an entire season to like be confident enough to like present a Liberty performance. So it's not something you could pick up in like a lesson.
Yeah, that seems that way to me at least. And so then we have Paige back, who is the wife of the investor that Lou had been working with.
Uh-huh.
But then Paige is giving Lou's manager the credit for the good stock moves, and that bothers Tim because he feels like he needs to defend Lou,
Hmm.
and they kind of have a fight later on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This was, this was sort of weird, like
yeah.
bringing these two back for like a couple of scenes as well. It just sort of felt a bit of a mishmash episode. I was like,
Mhm.
why are all these people returning in this one episode?
Yeah. And then they have Jack giving Georgie cow wrangling lessons, and that was probably the highlight of the episode,
Yeah,
is the
absolutely.
bond between Jack and Georgie
Mm,
growing.
yeah.
And then Chase talks to Ty and tells him that if you don't walk that girl down the aisle, someone else will. And I mean, I know that I don't know that they've been together for a while, so it makes sense. But she's still pretty young to be
Yeah.
like just assuming that they get married. I feel like.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it would make sense if we met them when they were, mid-20s, or just finishing
Uh-huh.
college,
Yeah.
early 20s. That would make sense. But yeah, again, this sort of felt like they brought Chase back as like a way to Chase back married as a way to sort of push Amy and Ty a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah, and Amy and Chase end up riding bareback on the horse
Hmm.
to try to show Haley how it's done. But then we get this whole thing with Chase telling Amy that she's the one that got away, which is pretty ridiculous. I mean, they had one kiss,
Yeah, yeah.
and
I think he forgets he was with Soraya.
right, yeah, he was with Soraya, and now he's married. And it seemed like they had a pretty okay relationship. So I don't know, it feels weird that he would say that. But I
Yeah,
mean, I don't know. They didn't ever even really go on a date, I don't think, hardly at all, unless you count that when they went to the movies.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess. But then we find out that Caleb needs a loan,
Mhm.
and he asks Lou for the loan, and she gives it to him. And so that's like a coupling you don't normally see together.
I was going to ask you. I felt like they were like weirdly close in this episode.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? Like, I know
Yeah.
that they're sort of in the same orbit, and they see each other, and we have scenes with them together. And we've had a couple of individual scenes, but it felt like we skipped a few steps. I was like, okay, that hug felt weirdly intimate.
Yeah. It was weird. And I mean, it's kind of nice on a show when you have sort of characters that you don't typically see together doing scenes together. That can be kind of refreshing. But yeah, it was also kind of weird. Like
Hmm.
I feel like Lou would be pretty low down on the people I asked for loans from.
Hmm.
Because he'd already asked Jack,
Hmm.
and Tim was just gonna make fun of him.
Yeah.
And so I guess I don't know who you can ask, but
He doesn't really have a relationship with Lisa or anything, so I
mm,
guess Lou is like the next sort of logical choice.
yeah, I guess so. Guess so. So Georgie says you could be a dinosaur and still apply to be a foster uh, uh parent. But my question about this was, wouldn't Jack already be in the system? Wouldn't he already kind of have all those approvals done?
I'm not sure. I think he should have with Ty, yeah. Um,
Yeah, because
sort
I
of
mean,
has
you going
to,
through there's like home inspections and other training and things like that, but he's already receiving teens,
yeah.
like, and so it
In
seems
case it is a little bit different because she is 11 and I think Ty was maybe 17, almost 18 when he came to Heartland.
hmm,
So maybe there's a little bit of a difference there. And maybe it was sort of a sort of because Marion was the sort of original person that was going to be looking after
uh-huh,
Ty. Um, maybe he was there as sort of like a temporary one and done sort of deal. Um, yeah, but it felt
weird.
like he should have maybe had some sort of record or someone you know yeah, I suppose you have to have a lot of references and things like that. I felt like you should maybe have all those things in place already.
Hmm. Yeah, because I mean, I think he wouldn't have gotten Georgie in the first place if
Exactly.
it wasn't already approved and somebody that Clint uh, could rely on, that there
Yeah.
wasn't that ambiguity. I don't know. That was a little confusing. But then you have a bunch of scenes with Haley being upset about Chase and Amy, and Chase and Amy talking, and Chase says Amy is jealous of him, and Haley says this sort of thing happens to me all the time, being in the public eye. And that's when he says you'll always be the one that got away. And Chase kisses Amy and she slaps him. And then Ty sees it, and Ty's just like, okay, good. She can stand up for herself, which is like, no, duh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course she can.
Yeah, she never pursued Chase at all. So yeah.
Yeah. And we find out Caleb will work for Lou at the Hanley place to pay back the loan.
Hmm.
And we also find out that Lou wants to quit at Hubbard. She doesn't like it, which I wouldn't like it either. I mean, it just feels like this whole solution of them the both working, which would be fine, but him working in Vancouver and her working, and I mean, it's just not. You can't have a marriage that way. It's not going to work.
Yeah, you can't sort of have it all, in that regard, but especially when one is, living in a different city, majority of
Yeah.
the time.
You need, and if you're going to be raising a child, like you need to be together, like at least nominally.
Yeah.
And so, and like it just feels like such an unsatisfying job to sacrifice being with your child for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, being an investment, right? Like, it'd be one thing if she was out on the, let's say, rodeo circuit or doing something that was like slightly more kind of personal and ambitious than like, I don't know, giving financial advice. It's just so bland.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like this is like a good solution, for her to do it on a sort of smaller scale if that is something that she's really passionate about. But doing it sort of full time, working at an office every day is just
Hmm.
not, especially when she runs another business on top of that at
Right.
Heartland. So yeah, it's just not, viable.
So one of the best scenes I thought was Jack showing Georgie how to tie flies.
Hmm.
I know, just that
Yeah,
little
that's good.
conversation they had there I liked. And I mean, and Peter was just like completely missing this episode.
Yeah,
I guess he's
yeah,
in Vancouver.
yeah,
Um,
probably.
and we get a whole scene with Haley. She's upset. Thanks for ending my marriage, Amy. And Amy says that that Chase actually loves you, and they have the whole conversation. And that's when we find out Lou tells Paige, "I already quit." And they basically have this whole conversation. The Paige says, "You're going to want to have another baby. How are you going to make this work?" And she basically says, like, "My family planning is none of your business." It is probably true that she's going to want probably to have another child. But yeah, I mean, I could see Lou's point there
Uh-huh. Yeah, it
with
just feels like this
Paige.
just wasn't a good fit for her.
Hmm. And we find out that there's a toy company that's going to be sponsoring her blog. So that's exciting. New option for Lou. And uh and yeah, I wrote down, are they making Lou and Caleb a couple? I wrote that down. That was a little bit weird.
Yeah, it
And
felt so strange.
we find out that Haley is pregnant. She agrees to go on the road with Chase, which she had previously not agreed to.
Hmm.
And it was interesting to me because she says this is your life and how you make a living, which made me think about Chesapeake Shores and how the the, the Trace, like, they treat him as a villain for, like, this is his life, this is how he makes a living, he's a singer, he's going to go on tour, which is always just seemed so bonkers to me. And I'm like, yes, they need a Haley in Chesapeake Shores. Sort of like, this is your life, this is how you make a living. Yes. So anyway, yes, so what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I gave it a 6, which is a little harsh, but yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this one.
Hmm. Yeah, I can see your point. I guess I wasn't as down on it, but I'd give it 6.5, a little higher,
Hmm.
but not much. So not one of the best. We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies Podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
All right. Then next episode is Do the Right Thing. And this is hold on just a sec. When Ty needs some engine parts for his broken down truck, he's forced to turn to the last person on earth he wants to help from, his stepfather, Wade. Meanwhile, Lou goes after the financial portfolio of Lisa's wealthy ex-husband, Dan Hartfield, and learns something that could be devastating to Jack. Amy works with a miniature chuck wagon horse and discovers he may have a greater calling, and Georgie and Mallory need to put aside their differences to pull off a special dinner at Heartland. So, what did you think about this episode overall?
Yeah, I thought this one was really, really good. I liked pretty much all of the storylines. Again, like the Mallory Georgie thing is a little frustrating. But yeah, I liked everything else. Particularly I liked Amy's sort of, case of the week. And I felt like it was a good sort of wrap up for Ty and Wade as well.
Yeah, the only thing is that it seems like a miniature horse would not be a good special needs help animal just because they're so big. Like, how could you even have them around?
Yeah, it feels
So
like
unless
it's
you're outside.
probably it feels like it's probably fine on like a farm or, you know, that sort of environment, but yeah, not out and about.
I mean, are you gonna have a miniature horse inside your house?
Yeah, that's not good.
They're pretty big. So I was thinking, like, it feels like it would only be helpful outside,
Yeah, I feel like that's probably the case.
which seems like that wouldn't be all that helpful if it could only be outside.
Yeah, it
I
feels
don't
like
know.
she's probably pretty familiar with the surroundings, but yeah, a little added help outside. I think that's about as far as it would go. Unless you're Mrs. Bell and you sort of allow them
Yeah,
inside your house.
yeah, I guess you have Sugarfoot, huh? But the little horse's name is Bug. That was kind of cute.
Yeah, it was cute.
And yeah, and you have those chuck wagon riders, which is still such a weird. I mean, there's just so many different uh rodeo
Hmm.
competitions that I never heard of.
Yeah, that one seems like particularly dangerous as well.
Yeah, I know. They're going so fast. So Mallory wants to run Ty's birthday dinner party.
Hmm.
And so that is kind of going on. And Mallory kind of makes Georgie do everything. Well, it's like Lou is sort of ordering Mallory around, and then Mallory sort of ordering Georgie around.
Hmm.
The chain of screaming.
Yeah.
And then uh, Ty needs some parts, and seems the only person he can get them from is his stepdad, Wade, who he just really hates.
Hmm.
And Lily is worried about Wade and his mother, and Jack and Tim get in a fight, and they he's upset because Jack is upset because of everything he's heard about Lou and Dan Hartfield, and also that supposedly Dan Hartfield and Lisa have reconciled.
Yeah. This was
And
sort of strange as well. It sort of felt a little unfair to Lisa that, we've seen Dan sort of be shady in the past. So it definitely was a little bit like, yeah, I don't think that's true, or if it is true, it's a little unfair to not have Lisa in the picture for the
mhm,
episode, for it all to sort of come from his side. So I definitely sort of had a bit of a question mark over that. I was like, yeah,
yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Did you like how they had a happy retirement Larry cake? That's kind of
Yeah,
funny.
I was sort of waiting for Georgie just to like leave it and not warn her.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because you think like doing a birthday party for Ty wouldn't be all that much work.
Is it a birthday? I thought it was just like a congratulations, you're going to college kind of party.
Oh,
I wasn't
maybe so. Maybe I wrote it down wrong.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like a birthday or something.
Uh-huh. But still, I mean, what?
Yeah.
You get a cake, you have some balloons. It's not that big a deal.
Especially
But
considering he doesn't even want it. So
right.
he get a
Yeah.
home cooked meal and he'll be pretty happy.
Yeah. And so Wade and Ty, they go to get the parts. What do you think about this whole scene with this dog coming after them? And it turns out they didn't really have the permission to get the parts after all.
Yeah,
Did you
that
think that
feels,
was fun?
yeah, that really tracks with Wade as well. That's totally something he would do. Um, but yeah, it was a good sort of way to get them alone. Because I don't think Ty would really, be down for sitting down and talking with Wade sort of one on one. So it was a good sort of way to get them together.
What
It
do
was
you
pretty funny as well.
Yeah, do you think that Ty should trust Wade at this point? Do you think he's shown enough of a change?
It's difficult because there's sort of abuse there.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it's perfectly fine for Ty to say that he will never forgive him and he'll never have a relationship with him. And I thought it was really mature of Ty in the end to sort of say he's not going to stand in the way, but you know, I wasn't sitting there thinking that he was going to wound up having a relationship with Wade. I just sort of
Uh-huh.
felt like he was sort of saying, I'm not going to stand in the way anymore, but, you know, I'm not, this isn't, it felt like he'd really moved on at this point in his life. But also, it's perfectly justified if he's not going to forgive Wade because personally, I don't think I would. So,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, Wade says your mom made me want to be a better man.
Mm,
And so then Ty does give Wade permission to marry his mom because he finds out that the only reason his mom refused was because she was scared of losing Ty. And yeah, I mean, it's tough because unfortunately, usually that kind of abusive behavior doesn't change and does cycle back. And it's tough. But then again, you kind of have to let people make their own choices as well.
yeah.
Um, so I don't know. It's a tough one.
Hmm.
And then you have him and Jack shooting targets. That was pretty funny, I thought.
Yeah, that was really funny.
He finds out about Lisa and he's like, boom, 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 about Dan and Lisa. And Lou refuses to take Dan on as a client.
Yeah.
And Jack kind of says, you don't have to do that, kind of a thing. And he says, you moved on a little too quickly, but that happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Hmm.
With Lisa. And we also find out that Ty, the reason why he has that old truck was because it was the one thing he had before going to
Hmm.
Heartland.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that he was sort of making fun of Jack a few seasons ago, but holding on to his old truck. He's sort of doing the same.
Right. Yeah. Then Lou approves of the party and Amy realizes that she doesn't want to wait anymore, that
Hmm.
she's ready to say yes. So that was kind of a fun reveal.
Yeah.
So, and Mallory apologizes. She says, I turned into Lou, only worse. Good. So, and then we find out that Bug is going to be a guide animal. Like I said, I don't really think that makes sense, but what do I know? They say in the episode at least that's a thing, I guess, is miniature horses as guide animals, but just doesn't seem practical to me. But anyway, what would you give this episode 1 to 10?
I gave it a 7.5.
Hmm. I think that's fair. That's good. All right, last episode is Great Expectations. And this is a trip to help out an old friend at a fishing camp doesn't go as planned, and a series of unexpected events elevate into a life-changing weekend for the entire family. Amy and Ty wind up going to the camp on their own, where a shared adventure involving a wounded foal brings them to a special moment. Meanwhile, Georgie realizes too late the real reason she and Jack have had to stay behind while Lou finds herself swamped with a flu-stricken Katie. And on top of everything, Jack and Lisa's issues come to a head. So what do you think of this episode?
Yeah, this was a fantastic episode. I think one of the best I've done. I'm pretty sure this was like a mid-season finale. It sort of felt like that, but yeah, this was really, really good. Some of the best like Amy and Ty stuff I've got in a while.
Yeah, I mean, you can't beat a proposal. I mean, episode that's going to be pretty epic, and it's also pretty nerve wracking.
Hmm.
Just everything going wrong between Clint and Jack, the inspection and everything, and it's just like it's stressful. You think
Yeah,
they're not gonna be able to keep Georgie, and every time someone would come in and say something inappropriate, it was just
yeah.
like, oh no.
It's like a trope we see quite a lot, but I felt like they handled it really well. Like every single time, I was like, oh my god! Like the second Tim opens his mouth, I'm like, nothing good is going to happen here.
Yeah, it was like Tim coming in and then Lou and then just one after another and you're just like, oh no, and Georgie coming in and oh, that stuff like that is so stressful.
Yeah,
And they're going up to Stumpy's for horses and fishing. Is that right?
yeah, I think so.
Mm,
Yeah, sort of
mm,
a family get
Georgie's
together or something. Yeah.
yeah, Georgie is super excited about this and but then Clint shows up, and it turns out that that is the day that he's inspecting them for Georgie.
Hmm.
And so she is so disappointed. She's so upset. And she's like, she comes in, I'm never going to forgive you ever again. Which I don't know. I think that might be proof of actual good parenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and then, so And then yeah, then Tim comes in and makes this big speech about how he doesn't support Jack having Georgie around. And I think that's kind of ridiculous because it's not like it's an infant.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, in what business is it of him either? Like Jack is such a natural like caregiver. Like it
Mhm.
makes sense that that's something that he would do. So for Tim to sort of come in and have that attitude, when half the time him and Jack disagree on things, yeah,
Mhm.
it felt kind of crazy.
Yeah, and then you have Peter and Lou arguing because Peter wants to have more kids, and obviously that's up to Lou. He doesn't really get to decide that.
Hmm.
And Katie is sick, and so they're not able to leave on the trip like they want. And so it's just Ty and Amy that
Yeah.
are leaving, and they find this wild horse that has been
Hmm.
caught in the trap. And so
Oh,
it's pretty
horrible. Yeah.
yeah, they do such a good job of making these horses obviously they're not really injuring them, but making them look injured with the makeup and everything, or however they are able to do it. It's really impressive.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's such a cruel thing as well, and they sort of
Yeah.
handle it really well.
Yeah, and it's infected and the where they had the rope is all uh it's it's
Brutal.
all set into skin.
Yeah,
No
it's
fun.
like really infected.
Hmm.
Um, and Ty doesn't have his like kit with him, so they sort of have to try some home remedies.
Is Stumpy gone or something like that? Is he why didn't
I'm
he
not sure.
find this?
Him is such a like plot device. Like he's not appeared in like a few episodes, but he gets mentioned. I think they
Uh-huh.
were just like helping out to set up for him. I think it was like a family reunion. Um, and they were going up to help him. But then that
Hmm.
doesn't make sense because Amy and Ty are there alone. So it was like all of the family going up on their own to help someone do something that they weren't actually invited to. It's like,
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I was a little bit confused. I was like, is he dead or something? Because how could he not know about this trap? Who set the trap?
yeah,
The
I'm not sure.
poachers?
Must have been just poachers, yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. You do get a really sweet little scene between Georgie and Pete.
Yeah,
And she says to him, I messed up.
yeah.
And that was a nice little scene between the two of them, I thought.
I'm not sure if I'm right, but I felt like in this episode they're really setting up Peter and Lou being the foster parents to Georgie. I felt like
Oh,
that was the way that they were sort of going. Because Peter does mention that he wants to sort of expand the family. He says that to Lou that maybe they should have more children, which is crazy considering the timing. You know, they're not even anywhere near done the Hanley house.
true.
And he sort of says that, and then Georgie and Lou have a really nice scene later on. So it felt like they were sort of setting it up that way. I'm not sure. Could be
I didn't
completely
think of
wrong.
that, but I could see it now that you mention it.
Hmm.
It's just that would be an interesting way of dealing with it, because her bond is so much with Jack, but she could still be with him.
Hmm.
Interesting. And so then Amy makes Will bark tea for the horse,
Hmm.
and they will get him to calm down so that the mother will come for her full. And that was all very well done, I think. Very well done.
Yeah, it was really good.
And then we get more craziness between Clint and everybody. Clint says, do you have backup? And he's like, oh, I got tons of backup. But then he learns that Georgie fell down a well. It's just, oh man, it's very
Yeah,
stressful.
yeah. Whenever he comes to Heartland, it's just like drama.
Yeah. And then Lisa shows up and she says that she misses Jack and tells him that her and Dan aren't together.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
was weird. It's like, why was that a thing? Was that just like to get Jack upset, to get him to? Yeah, it felt weird to have sort of Dan in one episode, then Lisa in the next, and
yeah.
not really have a clear idea as to why he said that in the first place.
Yeah, I wonder what the end goal is. I mean, are they eventually going to get married or well, I wonder what the end goal is for them as a couple
Yeah, I
in the
hope so.
show. Yeah. And Ty and Amy make a poultice for the horse. The one thing I wondered about that is how long that stays on the horse.
Yeah, yeah, they would really
'Cause
need to like secure it.
yeah, well, you need that, and then it seems like you need to reapply it, and you wouldn't want that kind of poultice on there that long. But
No.
maybe it dries.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm not up on my animal poultices. So Amy tells Ty that she loves him. Says this feels right, us together. And then Ty proposes in the evening, and she says yes. So that's very exciting. It's a
Yeah, it was
huge
a really
moment
good
for the
scene.
show.
Yeah, it was like subtle and romantic, and there was no drama sort of leading up to it, which was really good.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it was really well done.
Yeah, and then Georgie is reading to Katie. It's very
Hmm.
sweet, and she says it feels safe like a nest.
Yeah,
And but then Georgie also hears about Clint talking to Jack, and she gets his phone, and she runs away with Phoenix,
hmm,
and uh, we get kind of a cliffhanger at the end of this episode because they're in the barn with the fire.
yeah, yeah. It's not good. I could be wrong because I watched the episode this morning. Like that's the barn, the Hanley barn, and I think at the end the whole house was on fire as well. So
Oh,
that's not
really?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I need to double check, but the barn was certainly up in flames anyway. Like,
Yeah.
that's not good in terms of like Lou and Peter's future.
Which honestly, it probably would be better just to build a new house. It's probably be less expensive.
A new house in the beginning. Like,
Yeah, just to build a new house. I don't know how far along they were on the renovations if it was the house. I didn't notice that. I was just focused on the barn, but
yeah,
that could be an interesting dynamic.
yeah. Yeah, they really
So,
shouldn't have filled in that foundation that they built.
right. So, what would you give this one 1 to 10?
I gave it a 9. I really liked it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's got the proposal of the two most iconic characters of the show, so it's got to be pretty high up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there we go. That's these 3 episodes. Let us know what you think of these 3 episodes if you're listening, and which one was your favorite. What scores would you give? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section or on Twitter. And Michelle, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Michelle R. Benson.
Great. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check that out. And make sure you're following the Hallmarkies podcast, all of our social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave us your ratings and reviews. We really appreciate that. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group and merch store, which we appreciate all the support there. We have all the information in the description, so check that out. And thanks so much. We'll talk again next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.